we kick into our next item, I just wanted to introduce Robbie as a regional councillor at the back of the room there. And we did have Gary Maguire, but I'm looking at his fan now. But Gary is a regional councillor. He's withdrawn. Oh, there you are, Gary. Nice to see you. I saw you jumped on a bit earlier. So thanks for attending. All right, we're going to move on to our next item, the speed limit review submissions, 7.2. We are on page 12, and I'll hand over to Phil.
Yeah, so just really quickly, Julie's already introduced herself. Julie has developed both of these submissions, so we'll just quickly take you through them.
Morning, thank you, Madam Chair. As Phil and Liz, Councillor Stock, have indicated, I've prepared some submissions on behalf of this committee when you weren't sitting, so that's generally what we do and get them signed off. I guess it's really important to remember, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Pettit talked last time about advocacy and how we can influence or raise the influence of this committee. We can and have influenced government positions on transport outcomes, including through submissions, advocacy to ministers of the Crown, and securing funding for various transport activities, including road safety. So one of the RTC roles is to undertake an advocacy role on a number of transport matters, including road safety, and they've often taken a very strong and active interest in road safety outcomes, because the Waikato region is disproportionately represented in road safety statistics, which has always been of major concern to this committee. Speed is a significant contributor to road trauma, and I've explained some of that in this report and in previous ones that have sort of been an omnibus of all the changes that have happened over the last couple of years. So the focus on speed limits, or the position of the government, has changed over the last couple of years, and there have been several changes to speed limits on both local roads and state highways. Over the last couple of years, this committee has made several submissions, and this report here today outlines the most recent submissions, one of which was that we supported at State Highway 1 at Motatiri alongside Lake Taupo. And the other one was on State Highway 26A, which is Morrinsville Road in Hamilton. So that one is in response to that part of the road becoming a local road, and then for needing to be of a much more sort of urban and community-oriented speed limit. The one at Lake Motatiri is in response to the increase in speed limit earlier this year, and sadly, within days, there was a fatality there. So we have done, on your behalf, written 2 submissions that support the lowering of the speed limits in those areas, and that's the sort of the position that's been of this committee over the last couple of years, to always find what the most appropriate outcome is for the road conditions.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. I think this is a fairly straightforward item. Are there any questions? A lot of to and fro on this particular subject over the years, and that for myself personally has been exceptionally frustrating. But I think, the letters certainly support the position, and today all we're doing is receiving this report. But Duncan.
Yes, Chair, just a question. You mentioned disproportionately represented. Is that in terms of kilometres per kilometre driver? Crashes per population, or population. Just crashes per population sort of thing. Yes. I mean, because there's a lot of traffic goes through here, so you might expect we have more fatalities.
Yes. So deaths and serious injuries. We have 20% of the nation's deaths and serious injuries occur on our regional roads. We only have 10% of the nation's population. So it's based purely on population.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering if that means that infers we have a lot of traffic going through our areas, but it doesn't necessarily mean our roads are the most dangerous in the nation. That was, I suppose, my question. Okay.
We'll head online to Martin.
Yes, I've read the submission. Agree and think it's very good. I just sort of also wanted to point out that there was 3 speed reviews done on State Highway 25 and 1 on State Highway 2, and we the different community boards in our council advocated strongly, and it's rumoured that one elected member even produced a flyer and posted it into 400 letterboxes in the area concerned, but I can't confirm who that might have been. But we actually think it's very good that it appears since the change of transport minister, there's been a much more openness willingness to be able to look at some of these speeds. The ones that were on our State Highway 25 are all 70s down to 50s, and we're just awaiting, I think we've been told early in the new year, to see what those submissions were like and what the outcome will be from those. So yeah, I guess just a big thank you to Waka Kotahi and the Transport Minister for allowing these speed reviews to happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Yes, that's very appreciated. Okay, if there are no other queries, we've got a recommendation that the report be received on page 12. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for that? So Rodney is happy to move and Jeanette's happy to second. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to our next item. As I said, a nice update from Waka Kotahi NZTA, Andrew Corkle. So Andrew, I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. And someone's got my clicker. Cool. Thanks, LJ. So thanks for having me. Jeanette and Duncan, you've probably heard bits of what I've said because I've been in the process of, since the elections, going around the councils in the Bay of Plenty and the Waikato and doing a bit of an induction overview of how NZTA operates, the funding, the planning hierarchy, and some of the things that Phil has touched on today. Given that Phil's touched on a few things as well, it may mean that I'm able to go quicker through my 34 slides, realising that probably midday is that what I'm aiming for at the moment, 12 o'clock?
Yes, we have 40
cool.
minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So also able to bring a bit more detail to your individual councils when I come out and continue that round the traps in the new year. I think I've just got a Portiki district left in this side of Christmas, but hopefully being booked in around some of your committees as well. And we can get in some district detail questions and things there. I'd just like to state we work really closely with Waikato Regional Council, and we've appreciated a really good relationship through the previous term of the RTC as well. Me and my role, I'm your front door to NZTA Waka Kotahi as elected members. So feel free to, contact me, have a discussion with me about how to, best position things or get some traction or to get a bit of background on any particular issue that you've got going on. Ultimately, this is a useful voice for me in hearing what the regional voice is and being able to, in my role, put that up into our system in NZTA. Try and hold questions to the end then, and then I'll try and whip through things. So next slide, please. Just what we do. So we're working in partnership with local government, with iwi, with others to plan and invest and develop the land transport system. That is state highways as well as local roads through that funding assistance rate that we provide. We're also regulators of the system. We are a government agency. We work for the government of the day. We have the Land Transport Management Act, which Phil mentioned before, which guides us, and we have to give effect to that legislation. We have a CE, Brett Glidden, who's been in the role for just over a year, came through the agency originally as a cadet, based in Auckland, but knows a lot about Waikato Tauranga roads. He was the Bay of Plenty roading manager for a time. Our board chair, currently Simon Bridges, and minister we've touched on before, currently Chris Bishop. So moving on, please. I think I've mentioned earlier one of the most important roles that you will have over the next 3 years is to develop the region's regional land transport plan. The important thing to remember is that if you're putting projects forward through that process, it's important that council has the funding to pay for the local share. If you don't have funding, then it won't get funded. The project needs to be significant to the region, but if a project is not prioritised through the government policy statement, then council can decide to 100% fund a project themselves as well. So just because something doesn't progress doesn't mean it can't happen, but obviously understand the financial constraints of doing so when we're talking multi-million-dollar projects at times. We'll move on to the next one, please. This is our regulatory role. Just a quick overview. A side of the business you probably don't deal with a lot, but a huge part of what we do, we regulate drivers, we regulate vehicles, we regulate commercial transport, rail safety, revenue collection, which is where tolling legislation comes into it, as well as revenue generation through road user charges and things like that. And we regulate the roading network itself. While I'm on the slide, it's probably important to mention, I just talked with Mayor Ash about it during the break, but tolling was raised earlier. There is some legislation passing through or beginning to pass through Parliament at the moment regarding tolling reform. It would really change a lot of what is able to be undertaken at the moment. So currently you can only toll for a new road. We're required to consider and consult on tolling when we build a road of national significance, for example. The proposed legislation, as it works through Parliament, talks to the potential to toll local roads. It talks to the potential to toll existing roads and to put the revenue that is gained from tolling into a wider network than just the road itself that is being tolled. So rather than just funding the maintenance and debt collection for that piece of road, it could be a bit broader into a network. So that's something to consider in terms of a deep dive maybe for the committee as the years progress over the next 3 years as well. Probably, well, that would be a next year thing. And probably a good note to say, hey, if there's a particular matter that the committee sees as important that we want to have a deep dive into, I can connect with the right people and we can have them here presenting and going into that little workshop as well. We did that recently with safety cameras, I think, at the last RTC, which is another item I'll talk to shortly. We'll go to next one. This is just a little simple overview of our strategy. So I mentioned before, new CEO, we have a new strategy as a result, really clearly outlines the various functions that NZTA has. We are a big business with many functions, but quite simply, we are a planner, we're an investor, we're a regulator, we are a deliverer because we build the networks of state highway. We manage the assets of the existing state highway, and we are a customer service provider as well. I think we'll just flick through the next slide because people can reflect on our wider strategy as they like, and we'll get to the government policy statement. So this has been talked about a lot. This is our Bible as an agency, developed every 3 years by the Minister of Transport. A draft obviously is being worked on or will commence shortly, and that is adopted in 2027 as a final. This sets the government's strategic priorities for investment in the land transport system. Obviously, there's been a big shift in the current GPS, and Angela mentioned it before. It moved a lot more toward roads of national significance and building some of the big corridors that give effect to the government's priorities around economic development and productivity. And that reduced the amount of funding that was set aside and the focus in the government policy statement on some safety improvement works, walking and cycling as an activity class, some of the public transport activity class as well. The GPS forecasts how much revenue is expected to be raised. So when I talked about finite funding earlier, all of the funding that NZTA has for its activities comes from the National Land Transport Fund, unless the Crown decides to allocate funding through the budget from other areas. So that fund is largely made up of the excise duty on fuel, road user charges go into that as well. Tolling to some degree adds to that revenue, but obviously there's not a lot of tolling in New Zealand currently. So that fund is always oversubscribed, and will continue to be if we are continuing to focus, as the current GPS is, on building roads of national significance, given there's 17 of those around the country. Many of those do not have construction funding forecast in the current NLTP. So the National Land Transport Fund is a finite resource, but it is directed by the government policy statement. So if something lines up, a project lines up with the government policy statement, much more likely to gain funding through the regional, the national processes than if it didn't line up with the focus of the government policy statement of the day. The GPS also outlines our activity classes of where investment is going to go and how much is likely to be in each of those pots. Our current transport priorities that Phil touched on are economic growth and productivity, maintenance, and that's where the pothole prevention comes into, safety of the network, as well as value for money. So delivering for function rather than delivering things that, have what we've referred to as, frills or things that aren't necessarily required to add to the function of the road. We go to the next one. This is the State Highway Investment Proposal. So overall, we have $65 billion worth of state highway assets in New Zealand. It's New Zealand's biggest asset. Every 3 years, we develop our own state highway investment proposal, and that outlines what we want to do, what we need to invest to manage and develop the state highway network. So it's effectively our application for funding from the National Land Transport Fund to operate, maintain, renew, improve the 11,000 kilometres of state highway that we manage. So as a road controlling authority, this is us putting our best guess forward based on, data information, what we hear from communities on what needs to change and adjust on the state highway network itself. So some of the priorities that go into a regional land transport plan may be state highway related, especially given what I've heard today as well. And they would go into our state highway investment proposal. Our staff will be going around each of your councils as well and engaging around what their desires are for state highway investment and improvements over the next 3 years too. Go on, please, LJ. So the National Land Transport Program is the 3-year program that we, working with our co-investment partners, put together. It sets out the activities that will be funded from the National Land Transport Fund to give effect to the government policy statement. Activities considered for inclusion in the NLTP are those that are within RLTPs, as well as the state highway improvements, as I mentioned, that make it through, and the nationally delivered programs we need to fund that aren't state highway related. So the national ticketing solution, for example, that Phil mentioned earlier, would go forward into the NLTP for consideration. As I mentioned before, each NLTP, the bids for funding for regional and national projects are always higher than the forecast revenue that we are looking to gain from the National Land Transport Fund. So ultimately, the reality is not everything is possible, and that's why I spoke to priorities earlier. And if this committee speaks with that regional voice around what the priorities for the Waikato are, far more likely that that voice will be heard. Moving on. I don't need that slide. So the next one, NLTP, this is just a note that, the process is starting to get underway for RLTPs in the background. 2026 will be a big year, not just for this committee, but also our staff working alongside local government staff too. Evidence packs have been put together that really drill into the data around the roading network at a local and also regional level to help inform some of the projects that will eventually be put forward. So your teams should be across those at the moment. And the next slide, please. So regional land transport plans, Phil's already been through these, so I won't talk to them too long, but these can tell the story of each region effectively. So what are the challenges being faced by the communities? What are the land transport investment opportunities to help manage those challenges? Next, please. Maintenance, we're in the middle of changing how our contracts for maintenance are operating. So rather than the network outcomes contracts that most of the country has, we'll be working into an integrated delivery model. We're actively negotiating with potential suppliers at the moment across 14 contract areas. It'll be fairly transformational for how we operate our state highway network going forward, and there's definitely some efficiencies and some very large positives we will gain from moving to this model. We are on track to signal preferred suppliers for this before Christmas, and hopefully signing some contracts for February with a kick-off for May. There's a few areas that have different setups currently that don't quite come into this immediately, such as I think it's Jeanette down in your area, that West Waikato, that'll be a slightly later stage, but most of the country comes in line with this new contract model in May next year. Next slide. Road cones. Temporary traffic management, what I'll say here is it has been a focus for this government. It's been identified that the costs of temporary traffic management have been increasing, and road cones has obviously been a priority too, and there is actually a road cone hotline that has been set up for members of the public to ring in and report errant road cones. But the guideline for temporary traffic management has changed and is changing, and councils are in the process of implementing that themselves as a requirement of their funding from NZTA. The new guidance is risk-based, so it's less about this is the formula that you must apply for managing safety on a site. It's more about being able to take a flexible approach and, for example, putting out what is the right amount of cones for the situation. So more of a pragmatic approach, and ultimately the most important thing is that new guide better helps fulfil obligations of councils of NZTA under the Health and Safety Act as well, which is hugely important. You know, we talk slightly flippantly about road cones, but they are sometimes the only thing protecting road workers from major catastrophe at times. And a recent survey of road workers showed that a lot of them, you know, do feel unsafe on the network too. So there's a slight balance to hit there. Next, please, LJ. The Road Efficiency Group, I would say almost all of your councils will be a part of this. This is a collaborative group of asset managers and providers within road controlling authorities. It pulls together a lot of shared data and metrics that allows for benchmarking to occur. Your councils should have access to this, and then that in turn helps inform the programs that they put up to you as decision makers. Go to the next one, please. Just a quick note about the Community Road Safety Fund. This supports community-led, community-delivered road safety initiatives. Funding for this fund comes from personalised plate sales. So if you want to get a Christmas present and increase road safety potential, then there's your connection. The Road Safety Fund applications have closed, so hopefully there's some really good applications from community groups that have gone into that. And we'll be notifying some decisions in March, so this committee will hear about where that has gone to in the Waikato at that point. We'll move on to the regional update. The Waikato investment, Phil spoke to this earlier, $1.9 billion over the NLTP period into the Waikato. That is a record, but as we know, costs have only increased as well. The focus of that investment, you'll see up there, aligned with the GPS, it's for an efficient, safe and resilient transport network to support our primary product exports. And if you move to the next slide, we'll see the key highlights over the recent year. So 2 roads of national significance in the Waikato being progressed. work has completed now on the Piarere intersection improvements, so the large roundabout that will allow for the Waka Expressway to connect eventually. We've been through a huge program of road rebuilding down State Highway 1 from Tiro to Waiuru over the last 2 seasons. There's a couple of other highlights there around Coromandel as well, which I think I'll have a specific slide on shortly. Moving on, yeah. So average speed cameras, average speed safety cameras. So safety cameras are something we've taken over from the police as of July this year. They're in 3 different categories. So we manage the spot cameras that you see one going up the Kaimai. They are now signed and managed by NZTA. We also are rolling out mobile speed cameras, and we are also introducing for the first time average speed safety cameras. So there is one set of these going in Pōkeno. That is the only one on the Waikato at this point. There's one going in the Bay of Plenty at Matata. So they're going on areas where there has been, significant data to justify their need, where there is a large amount of traffic that is speeding compared to other parts of the network. Signposts, as you enter the area, the camera takes a shot of you. You exit the area, the camera does likewise. And if your average speed based on the time you took to get through that area is too high, then you'll get a fine. So this has been a significant success in other parts of the world at reducing deaths and serious injuries. So we are hoping that this trial can continue and we can continue to see some success out the other side of it. There might not be on that stretch, I don't know. Where's the Red Fox Tavern on me? Next slide, please. Mobile safety cameras in SUVs and trailers. This is also being managed by us at the moment. So trailers have started appearing on roadsides. We've worked with councils for local areas that are safe for these to be parked as well. And there's a whole network across the country of these rolling out. And there'll be some interesting data we can hopefully present on these once it's fully up and running too, in terms of impact. And we talk about that, 20% of the fatalities in the Waikato, and the stats that we are one of the worst, if not the worst region proportionately for road safety issues, then hopefully things like this can go some way towards improving that statistic. The next slide, please. This is a scary map that you won't be able to read that just shows all the sites that we are working on this summer. So you'll see the stats up there, significant work over the Kaimai. These slides will be circulated, by the way, so you can have a better look at this. There are more sites on there than usual, but all fairly well planned with local authorities and the Forward Works planner so that it doesn't hopefully clash with other things that are going on. There's just a huge volume of work to get through, and summer being the best months, obviously, to be able to undertake a lot of it. I touched earlier on Tiro to Waiuru, accelerated maintenance program. We've got some final sites there. A lot of that has been under night works this summer, and we haven't had large block closures like we did last summer, which has made it a little easier for communities to move around, and less detour routes hopefully has impacted a little less on, or less formal detour routes on the local roads. It was mentioned a couple of times earlier, where there is a formal detour route due to works on a state highway, there is the ability for compensation for the road controlling authority that is impacted by the detour route, but only on the official detour route. And that's all that we're required, all that we're able to fund at the moment is where there is an official detour route. So again, that may be something that, by the sounds of it, the committee might advocate for over coming years and months. Go to the next slide, just a snapshot of the work in Coromandel. Kuatunu, we're finally open to 2 lanes for the first time in, I think, more than 2 years as of last week. We've got a bridge replacement in Whangamata. Luckily, there's an easy detour route there. We've had the Kopu Hikawai closed for, I think it was a 10-day period to do some massive works in there recently. Boundary Creek Bridge has been replaced south of Coromandel. Fortunately, it took less time than we expected, and we had some really good engagement and support from the community and council around that project. And you see on there Pepe Stream Bridge. So that was announced last week by the Minister. There's a 2-lane bridge. We've just awarded the contract to Fulton Hogan and WSP for that work. They'll be designing that bridge over the course of 2026, and there'll be significant community engagement involved in that process too. So this is the bridge as you enter Tairua. It is on the end-of-life bridge register, which obviously meant that it resulted in gaining funding through the National Land Transport Fund for a replacement. Generally on a state highway, we don't replace a 1-lane bridge with a 1-lane bridge, so that town will benefit from a 2-lane bridge going forward. I think there may even be a concept on the next slide. And thanks, Martin, to TCDC. Peter has been great, and the elected member, but also the council engagement on all those programs of work have been really good. So we really appreciate those relationships. So that's what it would look like eventually. So a shared path on one side as well, and hopefully fairly transformational, although obviously at the other end of town, there's a 1-lane bridge. And prior to that, there's a 1-lane bridge. So the way generally bridges are prioritised by NZTA is, I think there's over 2,000 on state highways around the country. When they reach nearer the end of their life, obviously we don't want to pose weight restrictions on those. We don't want to see them deteriorate further. So they are prioritised through an end-of-life bridge register for funding. Moving on to the next one, I think we've got a strategic photo of the chair there.
Oh, good Lord. Yes, I've seen that.
Okay. Cambridge to Piarere, obviously a large road of national significance, completing the Waka to Expressway as originally proposed. We have been granted resource consent, the designated routes confirmed, and we are awaiting construction funding. So important to note that construction funding isn't confirmed at this point. That relies on some government decision making that will, eventually happen, I imagine, sometime in the new year. So we just need to continue to acquire property and make sure we're as ready as possible for that road of national significance to be built when we are able to.
Andrew, can I just ask you something on that? I mean, we've been here before where we were just about, I felt like we were almost ready to start that project and with a change of government. So are you confident that funding will be looked at in the new year and finalised before October?
I honestly couldn't give you an opinion on that. We have 17 roads of national significance around the country, all on various states of readiness, and not enough funding to fund them all. I would suggest that Cambridge to Piarere is one of the ones that is ready to put a spade in the ground compared to many others.
Okay, well, that gives me hope. Thank you.
Yeah. The next slide is our other RONs, Hamilton Southern Links. So for someone like me that worked at Hamilton City Council 15 years ago, that was conceived and talked about back then. So we're really fortunate that our minister in October endorsed the investment case and allocated $100 million toward the pre-implementation phase. So that really detailed design, finalisation of designation, purchase of property, because we've got about 50% of the property along that route. Those that are maybe outside of Hamilton and less familiar with this, you can see the route up there on the map. It really is the critical connection to that huge future growth area south of the city around the airport, Mystery Creek, etc., Peacocks, that connects State Highway 1, Waikato Expressway, right around to State Highway 3, and then down south past the airport as well. So we've got a project team that's working hard on the next phase of that now. Move on to the next one. Time's okay. State highway speed management. So we've talked a little bit about speed reversals. There was a new setting of speed limits legislation that was brought in with the change in government. We've implemented and councils have implemented all the reversals that were required on roads through that legislation. The next part was installation of variable speed limits outside of primary schools across the country, and there's a rolling program of those being implemented at once at the moment. Move on to the next one, and talked a little bit about the State Highway 25 Coromandel speed management consultations. Those hopefully we can announce fairly shortly, Martin. I don't think we'll be needing to wait to the new year to see the outcomes of those consultations. We've also got some consultation just completed on Rains Road by the airport road there on an intersection speed zone. State Highway 1 Motuteri, hopefully we can announce that. The idea was to implement outcomes prior to Christmas for some of those key ones. Same for Karangahaki and Waihi. And we've obviously had some others underway too. We've mentioned Morrinsville Road earlier, but some outside Marais, particularly busy areas, Rangaiti, north of Waharoa, and bottom of the Kaimai is also in your patch, Ash, where you can imagine the level of service of that road. State Highway 29 has changed a lot outside some of those community facility areas. Next slide looks at what we are going to go live with on the 6th of January in terms of speed consultation. So, I mean, before I came into this role, I didn't know what was involved in changing a speed limit. Now I know all the gazetting that is involved, the Director of Land Transport, the community consultation required, and the actual cost of doing these, which is why we have a long list. And when you raise one with us as elected members, we make sure we actually assess that and add that to that list in the right priority area as well. So that's another part of your role and the role of this committee in terms of advocacy. You'll see up there for the South Waikato State Highway 528 intersection. So that doesn't address the Blue Springs issue we talked about, but there are some ongoing conversations we're having with your team around that. A couple in Matamata Piako, including my old farm on the corner of Taotaoroa Road. I don't know if my dad would actually support that or not, but he doesn't have to submit now that he's not there. And one just out of Hamilton there to Akaramia as well. Coming up to the end so we can talk to some questions. Last slide, I think, safety projects. A lot of our safety improvement projects, you'll note median barriers, etc., were obviously paused with the change in government direction, change in policy statement. So there was more to do along State Highway 29 and State Highway 28 and State Highway 1 through Tiro that did not progress, but there are some minor safety improvements being put in there. There's a roundabout obviously at Harwood Road intersection with State Highway 5 at the moment that is progressing. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at there. It's a whole heap of information. So thanks for listening. And I think I've rattled through an okay time that we can have a discussion on some points, and happy to take anything away that I can't answer as well.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Look, that was very informative. And as Andrew mentioned, we will get all the slides that you can distribute amongst your own councils, should you wish to. So happy to take questions. We'll start with Mike.
Yeah, look, just a bit of context, Andrew. So 1.9 billion for Waikato. What's your total spend budget?
I don't have that at hand.
But it'd be about 6, I'll be guessing. So
it'd be more than that. National Land Transport Fund would have 12 maybe.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, so that's quite significant, because what I wanted to, you've got a $65 billion state highway asset. And if you said, just 20-year lifetime, so, 5% maintenance program. And if you look at, East Taupo bypass, you look at Cambridge bypass, the outside wheel tracks are failing now after 10 years. Taupo's pretty much having major rehab done on it. So 20-year lifetime, just again, so there would be a $3 billion spend just on maintenance without the local funds for the councils and your capital programs. So if it is 12 billion, which is more than what I thought it was, you're probably in.
Don't quote me on that, Mike.
Yeah, but I'm just sort of trying to context here that we need 3 billion just for our highway maintenance without local share. And so funding is constrained. And so to do these big projects, we don't have funding for Southern Links. We don't, hopefully we have funding for Poireri. But we've got to look at our funding situation, and tolling is not going to solve the problem because the volumes aren't there. So that doesn't work. So I just think we need to look differently at this whole situation, because we can't wait another 50 years to build a highway to Tauranga. And the tunnelling thing, so how do we fund this? And I believe there are other ways that we haven't looked at yet that need to be looked at. So anyway, I just wanted to put that on the table.
Suggest you've grasped the reality of the situation well. And Steph has just messaged and said 32.9 billion for 3 years is our 3-year NLTP.
32.9.
So over a 3-year period.
Around 11 billion.
That's what we expect to raise through the National Land Transport Fund.
Look, that's healthy. It's a lot healthier than it used to be, but it's still only enough to look at, basic stuff, not what we need to do. And so that's what I just want to put that context on the table.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we'll move online to Martin and then to Ray.
Yes, thank you for the update. We're feeling extremely happy here in the Coromandel. As you could probably see a whole heap of our projects there, and I think just really a special thanks to Waka Kotahi, the two that sort of stood out for the Boundary Creek bridge replacement and the work on the Kopu Hikawai. Yes, they were closed and it was an inconvenience, but I think we're really seeing the benefit of when Waka Kotahi says, right, actually, we're going to close the road. It's going to be a small amount of disruption. And we've seen the photos of the people basically working all night. Lots of the stuff is pre-built. Lots of the work on the abutments and things is done beforehand. And yeah, it just seems a really, really good model. And we're just really grateful and also happy about the Pepe Bridge contract being awarded and signed. And you're absolutely right. There's a one-way bridge on each side of those, but we appreciate that you've got. Did you say 2,000 one-way bridges in the country?
Not one-way bridges, so I think it's bridges. There's more than 2,000.
Oh, okay, God, thank the Lord. Yes, but anyway, so we're very aware that that you've got lots of some number of one-way bridges, and yes, that Pepe Bridge will shift the queues one way or the other, but it's a good step in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I just note on, I guess, road closures for maintenance purposes, always a hard decision and one that is not taken lightly, especially in an area like Coromandel where there are not easy detour routes. And it's something we're really wary of the social license for, because obviously they are cost effective and efficient and it gets things done quicker. But we should not just be using them for the sake of that alone. There's a community voice to understand and amongst that. So,
and our community felt very listened to about that. So thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Right, Ray.
Thanks for that. I just want to back up once again with what Martin's just said. Living on the Hauraki Plains and going up the Coromandel, having it closed, but also having plenty of notice. We were able to forward plan our meetings, what we were doing. This is for our business, but I know with a lot of people around here. So thank you. And the both projects were done well ahead of schedule. Yes, the Tairua Bridge going to two-way. The other two would be fantastic to get that done because it's a real issue for transportation companies and also locals. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. I'm sorry, I've got to go. I've got another appointment at 12:15, so which I had booked in ahead of this meeting and been advised of it. So I want to say thank you to everyone and the feedback, and look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you, Ray. We'll go to Duncan.
Oh, hi, Andrew. You just a couple of things. It's interesting about you mentioning compensation for some of these designated routes if you shut down highways. Is there any? I'm just interested in how that compensation would be calculated.
There's a model and an algorithm that is not at my level of detail, Duncan, but I know we've worked through that with South Waikato recently because we had a lot of block closures last summer. and it's a long back and forth, but there is a formula there that the engineers and maintenance teams do use.
Oh, okay. And a second thing, I'll throw this one at you because you mentioned about the road cones. Do you know if there is anyone has ever done a benefit cost calculation on how many millions or tens of millions we're spending to save each road worker being seriously injured or killed?
I don't know. No.
No, I don't think. I just think that's the absolute measure of how these traffic management should have been addressed from the beginning, actually, but it's just something that's crept over the years. One little brief question. In terms of raising funds, has it been seriously considered to increase the vehicle registration of any vehicle, cars, trucks? Because I mean, I think it actually went down some years ago, and it's pretty cheap. Seems pretty cheap to run a car on the road, and I know
So there's another piece of legislation passing through Parliament at the moment around universal road user charges too, as well as looking at the fuel excise tax. And there's certain, I guess, revenue aspects of that legislation as well that will be important for this committee to be across, I think, going forward. And it may be another topic that we look at, because when those bills reach Parliament, having some form of submission from a regional perspective that's aligned is quite useful.
It's a good point, Andrew. We would need to put that on our radar there.
Oh yeah, I mean that's obviously more user pays than just throwing everyone's registration up. But I mean,
from a revenue perspective, like we talked about safety cameras, and obviously there's a lot of fines allocated there, and we had this discussion at the last RTC. None of the funds raised or the revenue that is gained from safety cameras goes to the National Land Transport Fund. It goes into a government consolidated fund, so it doesn't necessarily get used.
And my last one here is just it's more of a comment than a question. There was 5 kilometres of wire rope barrier got put in last year, I think, or the year before last, and on State Highway 1 just north of Taupo Airport, between Taupo Airport and State Highway 5. And I mean, I know how it got done because it got added into a bigger project of wire barriers going along State Highway 1 there. But that particular section, as far as I'm concerned, it was quite an extravagant waste of money and actually contrary to road safety outcomes, and certainly would increase the cost of that maintenance. So I don't know if there's a question or not, but does this forum present an opportunity for us to be able to dig a bit deeper into some of these NZTA promoted projects in our region before it's too late to intervene?
It's up to you based on our priorities at any given time. And I mean, wire rope barriers are not something that we actively install at the moment, other than on a road of national significance. So that's something that was paused through the current government policy statement.
Okay.
Elvis, I'll just get you to put your, there we go.
Cool, thank you. I'm just curious, what's the feedback been like on the night closures, minus the Kaimai? Has there been any sort of public, feedback?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and I was thinking this myself the other day, because the Kaimai one I have not heard any negative feedback or issues with, and I think it does come down to what Martin and Ray have mentioned around, good quality engagement does go a long way, and can thank Steph and her team for the way they do that, but also the way we connect with local government communications teams around those projects too. We've put significant resource into the Kaimais. From what I can see since I've been in the agency, there's always something going on. That is such a critical route, not just because of the length of detour, but the freight that increasingly uses that as well. So no, haven't heard anything specifically apart from that. You may have seen in the paper we got one wrong at Rotorua recently. There was a full closure of Tanai Road in the city, and clearly the public did not expect the impact that did have on their lives that day, and we heard that and we adjusted and changed. But we're always learning from those situations, the good and the bad.
And I do want to commend on the landowner coordination, because my parents live on the Tokoroa golf course, which currently has night closures, and that's been working pretty well, except for when they forget their card, and it's a different team. So, yeah,
Right.
good work there.
So Rodney and then Ash.
Thanks, Andrew, and obviously no one likes roadworks, but they have to happen. But for us in the trucking industry, especially the livestock side of it, I've had a lot of complaints, well, not complaints, but it's the time that they stop to just stop and go. Like it's all very well, you can plan if there's a road closure, but when they're like, for instance, they're stopping a truck with a full load of animals for 3/4 of an hour on, on the side of the road. If we would knew that it was going to be long delays, it's fine. You can plan for it, load differently or go at a different time of the day. But when you're just expecting the normal roadworks where you're going to be stopped for 10 minutes, maybe, I don't know. Is there a time limit on how long they sort of?
Not necessarily a time limit, but that does sound outrageously long to me. We do have a freight user forum that regularly meets with our journey managers and provides feedback on things like that. But yeah, no specific time limit that I'm aware of.
Generally it's pretty good, like we kind of know we get updates on when roads are closing and generally, it takes X amount of time, obviously. Sometimes they'll actually announce that there's going to be an hour each way, delay, so you just time your traffic to get to there. But it's when you just turn up at your average, someone's doing a culvert or something and all of a sudden you're there for 3/4 of an hour, which you didn't expect. That's kind of the issues. And then we kind of, anyway, I'll talk to you later about that.
Okay. We're going to move Duncan, a second question.
Oh yeah, just one thing on that topic actually. Look, just to let you know, something I encountered when I was down in Christchurch after the earthquakes, and they were doing a lot of rebuilding, which I was quite impressed with. And in terms of keeping public informed of roadworks, they had an app which was pretty much updated at least every 12 hours or so, so you'd know which street was closed off and what you were facing. And I still haven't seen anything as robust and informative as that, certainly on the NZTA websites. I mean, it just sounds like...
We have our Journey Planner website, but not many people would necessarily know to go to Journey Planner. So we do have some work that we need to do on that too. I mean, we generally saturate social media, but it does rely on you following it. Media itself, radio, often there's adverts. The Coromandel stuff was all on the radio, which has probably helped with the effectiveness, I think, of that communication.
No, it would be interesting if Google could talk to it on a daily basis and give information to travellers. I'm sure it's...
I imagine it's on its way with life and that whole industry, progressing at pace. So
truckies are usually way more quicker information than by the time the land transport journey planner has something, it's the road's been open for quite a while or closed for quite a while. Generally, but anyway.
Alrighty. Hey, I think we'll draw this to a close. Thank you for your presentation, Andrew. Really great to see that we've got 2 national roads of significance in our area, and Southern Links. I'm sure as a region we'll be looking to influence in any way, shape that we possibly can. I think we might try and have a separate discussion on that a little bit later. But got some last slide there around planning ahead.
Oh, that's just when I'm going on leave.
Excellent.
Don't talk to me between. No, I'm back on the 5th of January. It's we've got a pretty short closure, just like councils probably do.
Yeah, no. Hey, look, and just as an aside, and Ash is going to kill me for saying this, but I'd noticed with the speed management that you talked about earlier in your slides, Ash actually came up with a fast track way. I remember several years ago how to change some of the signs and the speed through particular towns. So you can Google him, and we can talk about it at lunch, perhaps. But that was very innovative.
I believe I know what you did. Yes. Coming from the Matamata Piako.
Exactly. You can Google it. You'll see what he was up to. Anyway, again, thanks, Andrew, for your presentation. It was great. And let's all remember that we will see Andrew on a regular basis at this forum. So. Okay, yeah, if we can, yeah, thank you, Ash. You're going to move that we receive the report, and a seconder, please. Elvisa is going to second that. All in favour? Great, all carried. Thank you, everyone, for that. Right, we have a next presentation now from Kiwirail. So I think that is now going to be done online, and we've got Lisa. Welcome, Lisa.
Kia ora. Apologies for not being able to be there today. Just have had a clash of priorities on the day. Normally I would come along. I'd also like you to meet Michelle, who's joined my team as the Manager of Policy at Kiwirail, and Michelle is my alternate and will be attending some of these meetings. Michelle's obviously involved in the important work around policy settings for rail and infrastructure that affects how Kiwirail does its job. So there will be updates in her area over the next few meetings next year. Thanks, LJ. If you want to move us along to the first slide, that would be great. So just very briefly, I think most people do know who Kiwirail are, but our purpose is to provide stronger connections for a better New Zealand. Our vision, we want to be our customers' first choice and a trusted and sustainable partner moving freight and people. And then our mission, that we're an essential and valued part of New Zealand's freight and passenger transport systems. Our services contribute to efficient supply chains for freight customers to connect domestic and global markets and passengers to communities. Our ambition is to grow our value by winning customer loyalty, and we're on a fairly intense journey around improving our services, etc., to be able to do that. On to the next one, thank you. This slide pack will go out to you, so I won't read through everything. I guess the big things are that obviously we've got a lot of employees, 4,600 of them. Many of them work in the national freight network doing maintenance, but also in the metro networks doing maintenance. And then we've got all sorts of specialists across our team, including engineering and management and integrated planning, etc. We move more than 15 tonnes of freight a year. We're about 13% of the market share of total freight movement. That bobs up and down, so when the next freight demand study is done that NZTA are in the process of managing, that could also help solidify what those real numbers are. We have something like 24 million commuter trips. Now, some of those are in your region. Most of them are in the Auckland and Wellington regions. We operate and maintain 3,800 kilometres of track. So that's a task and it's a challenge. And we're one of New Zealand's largest landowners. We own 18,000 plus hectares of land, and that is also a task and a challenge. You'll know all about our Inter-Islander ferry service. It's had a lot of publicity over the last couple of years. 73,000 commercial vehicles, 6,000 passenger trips a year, and new ferries coming in 2029. Next one, thanks, LJ. The Value of Rail is a report that was initially commissioned by the Ministry of Transport in New Zealand and more recently has been updated by the Australasian Rail Association. And what that tells us is that rail delivers more than just the freight task that it carries. It delivers benefits in terms of GDP contribution. Moving freight to the ports is of particular importance, being able to do that in the volumes that we can. $2.3 billion worth of benefits associated to other things, of which you've got sustainability, etc., taking cars off roads and helping to prevent deaths and injuries in that way. And we remove something like 750 million light and heavy vehicle road kilometres every year. We save 146 million litres of fuel, even though we've got diesel locomotives at the moment. We have new ones on the way, so looking forward to having improved fleet over the next few years. Thanks, LJ. Along with all of that story, we have a very strong focus on sustainability strategy, carbon reduction plan and climate adaptation planning. We are one of the few in transport that is able to deliver strong benefits for sustainability, even without having modernised our fleet yet. So that's really great. We look forward to the transport system being more sustainable in the future as well. When all of the integrated transport system meets clear sustainability goals, that will be a good outcome for all of us. On to the next one, thank you. So how do we show up in the Waikato region? I've got a few slides that follow this that have some stories, but essentially we have the Waikato region has 350 route kilometres of operational rail lines, which is 11% of our network in terms of kilometres. However, the revenue, the Waikato region generates 25% of the rail freight. So as part of our golden triangle, the Waikato region is critically important to Kiwirail, and important to take those trucks off the road where we can. So in FY25, 260,000 truck trips and savings of $20 million litres of fuel just from the Waikato region. And the next one. This slide just details the key freight lines that we have in the key businesses that Kiwirail operates. So Metroport, incredibly important service that's moving the freight from Tauranga Port through Ruakura and into Auckland. Dairy flows between the rail-served factories and Fonterra's warehouses in Te Rapa. Logs and forest products Kinleith to Mount Maunganui. Domestic flows, domestic freight being those that come in the not the bulk freight, but in the smaller type package freight that goes between Auckland and Christchurch down those main trunks all the time. Those are our premium services. Bulk flows into the steel mill at Glenbrook. Imported coal for the Huntly Power Station. We operate Te Huia Regional Commuter Service for you. So we are the people who have the staff on the trains, etc. And Northern Explorer, we run a tourism service, of which Northern Explorer is one of our trains, and we are improving that service all the time. Actually, have had some fantastic improvements in fine dining and customer experience over the last couple of years. And I'll point out that both the Te Huia and the Northern Explorer service get absolutely excellent customer satisfaction feedback and scores. So we're really proud of that. Okay, let's go through them. So imports and exports between Tauranga, Ruakura and Auckland. The rail service was established in 1990, so it's been going for a decent amount of time, enough time to iron out most of those wrinkles. It's now our single biggest traffic flow. So this is where the most trains go up and down the network, and it enables Port of Tauranga to compete with Auckland Port, etc. So it's critically important in a wider sense for you, but also in a wider sense for Kiwirail, and that golden triangle, as I mentioned, is our busiest freight service, busiest freight line in the country. On to the next one. Dairy exports. So essentially we what we call shunt. So we move our freight into consolidation areas such as the Waikato factories at Te Rapa. That enables all of the consolidation that's needed for that product to be able to be exported, and it reduces the volume of trucks on the road moving that freight in. Over time, those freight flows will change and update throughout the country, and Kiwirail has a part to play in trying to make sure that we can deliver the best and most efficient service for the likes of Fonterra and other dairy companies. On to the next one. Dairy exports from the lower North Island at Te Rapa, and we have main trunk services. So these are where we go through the middle of the island. We take exports to Te Rapa. We facilitate the consolidation, so we are part of that process and service, and that helps reduce the truck traffic across the central North Island. Export logs. There's a lot of them. Every day, 10 trains of export logs arrive at Mount Maunganui. It's a huge amount. 4 are coming ex-Kinleith, 6 ex-Kiwirail. So we have 50 trains a week in both directions. 50 trains a week, including both directions, full of logs. We use the Kaimai Tunnel, which also garners a decent amount of publicity, being one of those ones that's absolutely critical, and it helps to reduce the truck traffic over State Highway 29 and over the Kaimai Range. On to the next one, thanks LJ, thank you. Hamilton is one of the busiest areas on the domestic trunk. It's a real crossover from freight moving from between Auckland and the rest of the country. The delivery of freight is a constant one between the South Island and the North Island. That includes refrigerated freight and non-refrigerated freight, and obviously uses the Inter-Islander service in terms of rail freight down at Wellington. We have a strong relationship with Main Freight and other freight forwarders to be able to ensure that those services remain constant and that they are on time. The DIFOT on those services has to be really up there in the high 90s for those customers to be able to operate efficiently. We give those freight services priority to ensure that they are able to meet national demand. On to the next one, thank you. Steel production, helping to keep the lights on. 3 trains a day of thermal coal to the steel mill at Glenbrook. Not the most popular freight payload that we carry, but very critical. Up to 2 trains a day of imported thermal coal goes through to Rotorua for use at the Huntly Power Station as well. So again, helping to keep those lights on. And lime to Glenbrook steel products from the mill. That's a picture of a coal hopper returning from Glenbrook to grab another load. So often those are travelling empty in one direction, unfortunately, but that's how it works. Okay, you're not going to be able to read this when you get the pack. You'll be able to see it, but what this is telling you is that these graphs are the freight volumes and import-export traffic between Auckland, Hamilton and Tauranga there in the orange, all growing. You can see the trend lines all upwards. Also, forestry through to Mount Maunganui on a cyclical growing path, but obviously still in the growing. So our rail traffic fluctuates depending on commodity cycles. So grass growing is very popular for Fonterra, and that determines what their seasons are. Likewise, forestry is a longer term cyclical business. When the logs are being cut, obviously we have volumes go up and down depending on how much land is allocated to that. Two-way annual net tonnage through the Kaimai Tunnel. We've given you some numbers there from 2005 at 3.9 million through to 2025 at 5.4 million. So net tonnes being the way that we measure the volume going on our trains. We'll head on to the next one. Okay, Te Huia, this is your service. Pretty awesome service. There's now 30 trains a week, delivering commuters choice, turn up and go convenience, meaning you don't have to drive your car into the middle of Auckland City and try and find yourself a car park, which can be a little bit tricky. Likewise, the same for Aucklanders who want to head off to Hamilton for a weekend or otherwise. That service is a godsend. Very convenient connections, major destinations, and affordable. So in the sense of going between cities, it's one of the few regional services that is running, and there's lots of appetite for regional commuter services, which I'm sure the NZTA team can help with if there's more desire through the rest of the country. That's where all of the regional councils are heading to have that conversation. Okay, next one. Northern Explorer, this is the service one of the services that Kiwirail runs. We actually run 3 tourism services and an occasional fourth with the Southerner every now and then. But these are essentially, we have scenic class carriages I don't know how many people have been on these services, but they are not fast, but they are kind of pretty. So they're very popular. The cafe on board, we've introduced a premium service in the last few years, and that is going really well. It's not cheap. It's not meant to be cheap. It is a tourism service. We have open air viewing carriages, which is pretty cool, and our Scenic Plus is what I was talking about before with the options, and we more and more are teaming up with local providers to be able to give bigger experiences than just rail. So we take people to places and can help them with accommodation and services and tourism experiences while they're there, which is fantastic. So growing our capability as well in that area. And last, I think, last couple of slides, which is around things that have taken place in the last few years. Safety in the Waikato, there's been a couple of major projects over the last year or two. Matamata fencing, we worked very closely with the council in Matamata to fence the rail corridor following sadly a fatality in that area. There is an awful lot of rail corridor through the country that is not fenced. Kiwirail has not got funding to be able to fence it all. And very often it's a collaboration between the councils and Kiwirail to help progress safety as we go through the various budget cycles. Ngarawahia Bridge, another interesting location of interest to many who love to jump off it and into the river. We're trying to improve the anti-trespass fencing there so that we hopefully don't have any more bad experiences with the public getting onto that bridge and then harming themselves trying to get off it. Design phase is just completed for the latest round of how we're going to keep people safe and off the bridge. So that's in progress at the moment. We should have an update next meeting. Thank you. This is how Kiwirail is funded. We have what we call a rail network investment program. The investment program is 3 years long. So the program that we're in at the moment is 2024 to 2027. That's the end of June in 2027. So it's our financial years that it covers. The government funds that, and it comes in through the NLTF into the ARNIP. It's a fund that's set aside specifically for rail. We need to manage all of the renewals, all of the maintenance, and all of the response to weather events, etc., from out of that funding. We're now working on the next ARNIP, and the expectation is that we are going to manage the rail works that we have to do more efficiently and with better long-term planning to be able to manage with a smaller funding envelope. That's pretty normal across government, and what we do prioritise is prioritised as a result of the GPS, which Andrew mentioned earlier. So the GPS says that we have to prioritise our funding towards those busy freight lines through the country and into the metro areas. So the Golden Triangle is a key receiver of a lot of the maintenance activity through the country, given that it delivers 25% of the freight load. Our key milestones for the development of the next ARNIP, which is currently, we've got lots of cross-functional teams in Kiwirail working on this. We plan to have an indicative program. We're working on with NZTA on that, which is due out a bit later in 2026, so mid to late 2026. The final ARNIP needs to be complete by mid-2027. So that's when it starts. It starts effectively on the 1st of July 2027 and will go through to the middle of 2029. The Minister of Transport will likely give his approval, his endorsement of the plan of the program around that mid-2027, but NZTA are the monitor of the funding, and they go through and they make sure that we've basically compiled everything in the way that makes it easy for the minister to be able to just do the tick box and sign the document. During the development of the ARNIP, we do talk to key regional transport committees, and that'll include yours, around what's going to be included in the plan and what isn't going to be included. There are a number of different work plans that come together to create that program across the country, and as I mentioned, we have to have funding set aside for those events that are not actually part of the plan as well, because there is no further funding available to us from anywhere else. We don't get funding from the NLTF separately from the ARNIP. So this is our way of managing a 3-year work program to bring everything together. And that, I think, might be us. Excellent.
Oh, brilliant. Hey, look, thank you, Lisa. Geez, there's a lot of information in there. So we will definitely be circulating this around to everyone. In fact, I've already had some messages from other councillors who are online watching this to circulate. So yeah, I imagine your own councillors will be interested in it as well. Questions?
Absolutely.
Mike.
Thanks very much. Few questions. Just don't have to provide this information now, but good to know, like NZTA, the asset value of your network and the maintenance or the money that you have currently to spend on that. So that would, and I'm sure that's coming out in your budgets, but if we could get that information, that would be useful, and the regional spend as well. But if you're taking 13% of the market share, you're 15 million tonnes, that means there's 100 million tonnes going on our roading network. And my understanding is rail share is actually declining, that roading is increasing in terms of tonnage. And the 2 inland ports here, Ports of Auckland did one at Horotū, that's been discontinued. They're not operating that. And my understanding is the Tainui Ruakura port is actually well below what they were planning to see through that. And so that's painting a picture that rail is not, taking that load away from the roads that we would like to see. And I just would, I want to understand that from a strategic point of view. And next one, a business case for another Kaimai tunnel. Is there one? And what would that look like? So that's quite a lot in there. So I don't expect you to answer all of that now. But the trend in that roading is taking more tonnage going forward than rail. Do you have any information on that?
Look, I don't have any specific information that I can share with you right now around those freight trends. We are increasing the amount of payload on rail as well. So there are movements around the different sectors. We operate an inland port for Port of Tauranga at Southdown at the Kiwirail yard. That inland port is very successful. As I mentioned, I think there's a slide in there. It's the largest one in New Zealand. So that one is certainly taking its share. But yep, there's a definite move towards those freight hubs, and the challenge with them is how to get rail's really good at doing point-to-point delivery, big loads, heavy loads, and going from one place directly to another. That's exactly where rail excels. So as an integrated transport solution, we need to actually manage how the roads and the rail work together to be able to transition from one to the other where needed. So that's something that we do actively work on with both our customers, Main Freight and other freight forwarding companies, and also NZTA. NZTA is currently working on a freight demand study. They've just been recently been given that task, which is fantastic because it will help us know where the freight is moving from and where it's going to. And Kiwirail aims to be able to fit with that planning. And we haven't had a freight demand study for quite a number of years. So that will be very important to help us with that planning and to make sure that we can deliver the services where they are needed the most, because it's not something you can just ring up in the morning and say, hey, I think I might actually need a train to here. It's well planned in advance, as you can imagine, and it also needs those connections at either end to move the freight to the train and move it off the train to the customer's final point of destination if it's not a port and going straight on a ship. So yeah. I will get you the values and the splits regionally as well. That's no problem. I don't have them on me. The Kaimai Tunnel, we don't have an alternate solution for that. There have been a number of interested parties over the years that have tried to find a solution. Right now, Kiwirail doesn't have any funding for a study or anything else into that. I don't think, Andrew, you would have anything in your bag of joy either. So that's something that it is a challenge, and those challenges and the structures in our network, and there's a lot of them, do need to have a specific plan associated to them. So I'll dig something out for the next one around the history of the Kaimai Tunnel and where those conversations have got to, and what can actually be done versus what is being done.
We don't have a specific program of works in the current GPS or in LTP, but we do have funding for a strategic corridor study for State Highway 29 between Piarere and Karakia, which looks at the future use of that road at a strategic planning level. Same for State Highway 1 from Te Rau to Waiuru, looking at those as two very increasingly busy corridors where the levels of service have changed over many, many years. So an outcome of that could be some kind of recommendation longer term of improvements to the state highway, which could conceivably include some kind of tunnel.
All right, Duncan.
Yeah, I suppose if we stop making improvements to state highways, that would probably help rail. I suppose that could be. But just a simple question actually about. I'm just interested in that Te Huia route between Auckland and Hamilton. Is that an express service, or does it stop at every stop along South Auckland and all the way? And do the times fit commuting between Hamilton, Auckland, and I'm just interested in how long that trip takes.
Well, Phil probably has a lot more information at his fingertips around the commuter experience than I do. But no, Te Huia is operated. We have a diesel locomotive that operates that service, so it doesn't go into the electrified part of the network in the metro. It runs alongside on the freight lines, so it isn't actually going through every station in Auckland as such. It heads into the Strand in the middle of the city, which is where Kiwirail also runs its scenic services from. So I think the current we electrified the line from Papakura through to Pukekohe, so it's possible for people now to get off the train and move on to the electrified network that Auckland Transport provide if they want to at South Auckland there. And as I say, in the city, the Strand is just on the side, kind of somewhere between Parnell and Britomart, so it's pretty close, within touch of the main commuter hub there in the city. So it doesn't quite run that way. Phil, can you help us out with the exact timing of how long that service takes now that all of the changes have taken place with Papakura to Pukekohe?
Yeah, I can just add a little bit there, which is that the service originally was planned to run twice a day between Hamilton and Papakura, and closed after a few months due to COVID. But when it reopened, it went all the way into central Auckland. So, and then Puanui station has opened, and then Pukekohe station has been upgraded. So we now stop Frankton, Rotokauri, Huntly, Pukekohe, Puanui, and then central Auckland at the Strand. There's, as Lisa has said, there are 30 trains a week, and there is a good commuter service from the south, but limited commuter service from the north, because there are no locos or carriages stationed in Auckland for that AM peak flow down south. So it's a relatively unbalanced northbound commuter service as things stand. The journey time has gone up and down because since the train was launched, we've been working to get through Auckland engineering works almost constantly. But with the electrification of Pukekohe to Papakura now complete, the journey time is back to 2.5 hours.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you. Mish, next question.
Thank you. I have a question about Te Huia as well. Does it pay its own bills? like I understand that there was a subsidy in getting it set up and subsidy in helping get it to where it currently is. Is it paying its bills yet, or is there still subsidy attached to that?
So all public transport is funded through three mechanisms. There is the value from fares, and then the balance is funded between the agency and ratepayers.
What's the split?
For Tahuia specifically, the fare box recovery ratio is higher than for bus.
Again?
For Tahuia, the fare box recovery is as good at, if not higher than bus. So I think it's about 16% of the fare of the cost of Tahuia comes from fares, and then the balance is funded by that difference between Crown and rates.
Thank you. Was it 16 or 60?
1.6, I believe, or it might be more than that now. I think it might be more closer to 17%.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's probably fair to say there'll be a number of discussions on Tahuia. Gary, and I can see you've got some queries and things as well. So I will be dedicating quite a bit of time to this, shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the regional PT subcommittees, one of its major topics next year will be Tahuia, but also aspects of that will flow back into this regional transport committee as well.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Who would like to go next? Are there any other pending questions?
I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to sort of comment on the rail. There's, like, for instance, the South Island, I think it's Timaru at the ports. There's a port, road transport and rail in conjunction building a port. So they build these hubs, like freight hubs, because as you say, rail's only good at carting stuff bulk, distances. There's not many rail lines out to my house or to Jeanette's farm or anything, so even to Mike's house to get his courier package dropped off. So they're only good for bulk stuff, and they're not very good with perishable goods, either, like livestock and things. So basically, but they're freight hubs in conjunction with road transport to do the best. Each industry's got a vital part to play in our transportation in this country. And so there is definitely collaboration going on, more so than us and them type thing nowadays. The road transport sector and everyone's working together, basically. So just kind of to answer, give you a bit of an idea of what's going on in the world. Yeah.
Right, last question from Mike.
Look, it's just on that Tahuia thing, and I know we're going to spend a bit of time on this, but my understanding is the subsidy at the moment is $30 per person. That's what we're funding, which is a lot of money, and that whole thing has to be looked at. It's going to be a big topic. Yeah.
It is going to be a very big topic. You're completely, accurate there. So 2026, early 2026, we'll be addressing that. All right. Robbie, have you got your hand up? To whom? Oh, certainly.
My question would be, since the freight corridor of the Golden Triangle, the availability of putting passenger services to Tauranga, what's the capability there? Is it something that gets talked around the council table quite often? I just, if you're saying there's the long term, your ability to connect freight to Auckland and Tauranga, is there actually going to be an availability for passenger service, or is that not going to be able to be done?
Look, there needs to be some detailed work done on that, and it hasn't been done yet. However, I don't think that there is anybody suggesting there isn't capacity in the network for more services to be running. Obviously, the timetabling is one of those critical things that is worked through very carefully once we have services running. But yeah, we certainly think there's potential that a passenger service could operate through to Tauranga. Obviously, at the moment, the challenge is, one, the funding of that service and who would sponsor it. It has to have support, it has to make sense, has to have a business case, etc., etc. So Kiwirail will get involved when that's developing to provide support to the process. Kiwirail doesn't, as such, manage passenger services at all, other than tourism ones. So that would need to be driven through your regional transport planning processes, and I guess in conjunction with with the Bay of Plenty Regional Council as well. And then Andrew with NZTA, they are the people who have to fund a portion of those required funds to run passenger services. So again, engagement through that planning process and business casing would be needed. But yes, from a capacity perspective, we don't believe that there would be that would be problematic to run occasional services, and it just needs to be very carefully timetabled as to who it is now to make sure that we don't have conflicting freight movements and passenger train movements and tourism movements all at the same moment in time. So yeah, that's part of the process.
Good question. Okay. Hey, look, thank you, Lisa, for for answering the well, looking towards the future. You know, could be quite good possible option for us to consider. Rightio, I think we've round up the questions, and lunch is awaiting, and further discussion, no doubt, amongst us all. I'd like to thank you for your attendance today, and those who are online. It's been very, very appreciated. Thank you for the presentations as well, and to the staff that have supported us here today. We will finish off with Karakia, and we're going. Oh no! Before we do that, we just have to move the report. So that's Alvisa was going to do that, and Ash is going to second. All in favour. Carried. That was a close call, wasn't it? Right. Okay. We'll do a Karakia to finish this up, and then finish with the lunch. Thank you.
Thank you. Unahia mai tu uru tapanui, kia watia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te hinenaro. I te ara takutu koe rā e rongo e whakairea aki ki runga, kia tina, umie, huie, tai ki e.
Thank you all.